Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode part 2 of my interview with Nick Littlehales, the sport coach. No, I messed it up again. Nick, you're going to shoot me again. I messed it up the first time we did it.
That's not a problem.
Sport sleep coach.
That's the one.
That's it. So, on part 1 of the show, I introduced you to Nick, and he basically name dropped his way through his career in the sport industry of all the incredible people that he's worked with, which is amazing, fascinating to hear. But Nick told a great amount of kind of like stories and evolved his kind of thought process in the world of sleep. And I wanted to get him back for a part 2 to kind of get a few more tangibles out of the discussion, kind of more things where you can go away after today and implement some things that are going to affect things, and maybe go and check out some more specific areas of Nick's work. Nick, you happy with that strategy?
Absolutely. Most people get my surname wrong, not the title of the company, because Littlehales is normally a bit difficult, but there you go. You got that right, at least.
Well, it seems self-explanatory to me. It's just there's too many S's in the title.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to use that as an excuse. We kind of told loads of stories last time. Getting into tangibles, I wrote a ton of notes the last time I interviewed you, so I'm going to kind of pick off and go on a bit of a random tangent. When I was going through my education, early days of being a nutrition coach, I followed Paul Chek a lot. And one of the things that they spoke about is grounding mattresses, or a sheet on a bed that had almost like a connection that you then plugged it into your socket and it grounded you to the earthing system of your kind of house. Have you ever seen information and things like that? Is there any research behind it? I mean, I don't use one anymore, but I'm wondering if I should whip it out again and plug it back in.
I don't really have too much background in that area, Ben. Certainly there's been a number of companies who produce these types of products trying to sort of balance all this electricity around us, and as techs come along, you can look at it in that way. But I think it's, whenever I've seen people using them, I mean, why aren't you using yours now? It's kind of, there's a lot of things that you can get right. And if you haven't got those things right, then anything like that is going to have little impact on you. So it's kind of like you want to get a good grounded approach to sleep, what you're doing from when you wake to when you go to sleep again. And then certainly certain little interventions can work. But, I certainly wouldn't invest in one of those products until I'd got everything else right. And you'd have to also say that the likelihood it's going to, improve you as an individual is probably more down to just how you feel about the world. Being grounded might make you feel good. Well, if that's okay, great.
So evolving that, where do you think the influences of electricity play in our sleep? Because there's lots of talk about iPhones, us viewing things, us being around Wi-Fi signals. Where's your opinion lie on our exposure to electricity? Because, let's look at nature. We always say we feel better in nature, day down the beach, walking outside barefoot, that kind of stuff. Where should we be concerned with electricity?
I think, in my lifetime, it was almost, if you lived very closely to electrical pylons, then that sort of could affect you as an individual if you live close to those sort of things. Certainly, it's not that long ago that we were all going to get affected by using phones close to our ears, because it would maybe create all sorts of things, from new cancers to whatever. I think in general terms that the world is the way it is. We're certainly not going to switch stuff off. I think the balance is just like everything, is that as we continue to develop and things develop around us, just not to forget, as you pointed out, that the favourite place we want to be is pretty much outside, in the natural environment, taking on daylight, interacting with the light and dark changes and temperature changes. And I think you just get this balance of just how much are you exposed to artificial lighting, to the lighting coming from the tech, how much time are you spending with these things, a balance against being outside. And I think if you always keep that in mind, which is a lot of what we do working with athletes. If you keep that in mind, then you should be okay. But you're not going to do much about it. It's just managing it.
So, I mean, we're now getting into kind of, I suppose, what is natural and what is unnatural. I mean, me personally, my body's got a clock. It wants to get up at like 5:36. I don't really set an alarm. So that means that every hour I go to bed later, I'm definitely going to lose sleep. How much should we be reading into the circadian rhythms of the sun? Do you say to your athletes, look, I'd really like you to be in bed by 10:30, or do you think that if they went to bed at midnight, 1 a.m, and they did get a genuine 8, maybe 9 hours of sleep, that is as good as going to bed at 10 or 11 o'clock?
Because your chronotype's likely to be a morning person, and you, like you said, you just want to get up and get on with your day. You're most productive in that morning time. I'm exactly the same, Ben. And part of the sort of sleep recovery factors that we look into, which are the 7 of them, those are 2 key areas. The first 2 is understanding the circadian process better, and also your personal chronotype. It's not that you can change what's going on all around you all the time, but being aware of it is much better. So because like in everybody's world, but particularly in sport, we've completely changed the way sport has developed and analysis and everything else. So you've got games and events being played at all different times. So you can't have this sort of 8-hour routine of a constant sleep time and a constant wake time. So the simple way to look at it is, rather than thinking about sleeping hours and lost sleep, is if you think about sleep in 90-minute cycles, which is actually a period of time in a clinical situation where a human being will roll through the various different stages of sleep. Is if you think about 90-minute cycles, then what you can do is 5 90-minute cycles gives you 7.5 hours, which is principally what a normal healthy adult would like to enjoy in every 24 hours. And it's called 5 cycles. So you've got 5:36. Mine is 6:30. I choose 6:30 every day as my wake-up time. I naturally wake, like you, to switch the alarm off, and I'm up and I'm doing stuff straight away. So if you take 6:30 and wander back in 90-minute cycles, you get 11 o'clock, Ben. And 11 o'clock is a good time within that circadian process for you to try and enter a sleep state. But what it also gives me is a series of timings. So I've got 11 o'clock, I've got 9:30 to start the pre-sleep routine, and that's just simply moving to be sleep prepared. So tech shut down, bowel and bladder empty, any light snack, taking on any small hydration, downloading stuff out of your mind, making sure it's all away, a little bit of decluttering, making sure that the bedroom's okay and nice and fresh and whatever you need to do, and moving from light to dark. So that starts around 9:30 to be asleep at 11. So if you looked at that across a period with an athlete and said, over 7 days, what that does is say you've got 35 cycles. 35 cycles over 7 days, if they're taken every night between 11 and 6:30, that's your target. That's your optimum recovery plan. But, as we all know, because none of us get 8 hours every night and we try and things happen, what you then look at is the schedule of the 7 days. And, you've got Manchester City and Real Madrid playing tonight in the UK, and they'll be kicking off at 8 o'clock at night, and they won't get back to their homes or hotels till quite late. So when you look at what you're doing each week, you can go, can I get between 11 and 6:30, 5 cycles on Sunday? Can I get them on Monday? And what you start to do, because you're looking in that way, is I've got timings. So there's 11 o'clock. The next slot along is 12:30. The next one is 2 a.m. Next one is 3:30. The next one is 5, and then I'm at 6:30. So what happens is, trying to give it some structure, is if, as I look at each day and say, well, I'm going to get up at 6:30 because circadian rhythms love a constant wake time. Mm-hmm. You get that into your system and you can really plan around it. If that's too flexible, like on days off and things like that, you just shove it all around and you don't care. But that constant wake time is your target. So when I go through that day, knowing that I'm going to be playing at 8 o'clock, we're training at this point in the day. I'm then going to be eating a little bit differently today because of the game. I'm going to have high adrenaline. So going into a big game like that, I'm probably not going to get back into my home or hotel till maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to be absolutely wired from the game, and I've got to try and sleep. So tonight, after that game, I'm probably targeting either 2 o'clock or 3:30 to go into a sleep state, go through till 6:30, wake up, and then the following day, which is likely to be a recovery day, I will add another 90-minute cycle between 1 and 3, which is the second natural sleep period, which is the siesta, that period there, where the urge and need to sleep clashes. And I could also think about a 30-minute controlled cycle. Those are the 2 periods, the classic nap, between 5 and 7, because that's another natural sleep period. So all you do is you start to look in at what's called a polyphasic approach, not a monophasic approach. And that is, rather than trying to put all your sleep recovery into the nocturnal period, you wander back to how our ancestors used to approach this by actually sleeping, maybe 2 or 3 times in a 24-hour period, using these slots to get that recovery. So over the course of 7 days, you can look at everything you're doing and you can say 5 there, 4 there, 1 in the midday, 1 in the evening before a game. And if you look at it and say, well, at least I've got an opportunity to unlock maybe 28 to 30 cycles, because you're hardly ever going to achieve that 35 cycle optimized, is that as long as the schedule's releasing those opportunities, I can apply myself to it. And it's just, it's a big subject talking about how to plan it in, but that's how you do it. And it's so much easier when somebody asks you, are you sleeping okay? Yeah, I'm on a 30 cycle routine. Oh, that's good. I avoid 25 cycles, because if the schedule's pushing under too much pressure, I have to look at something I can do about it. So even from the coach's point of view, if I'm training the athletes to work on cycles rather than hours, the optimum is trying to release 35 cycles in a 7-day period with a benchmark of around 30, because most people try and get 8, but sometimes they get 6, and like you said, you get dizzy. And even people, when they say, I went to bed at a certain time, got up at a certain time, so I must have got 8 hours last night. When actually, if you put any wearable or monitoring device on it, they were coming out of sleep states all over the place, going to the toilet. They didn't get 8 hours at all. Mm. So it kind of puts a little bit more structure to it, and that's how we apply it to the coaches. Can look at what's happening during the course of that week or that period, that season, or that whole year, and they can go, right, we're releasing the opportunity for that athlete to get at least 30 cycles next week, and we're happy with that. And it's then down to the athlete to try and make it happen for them. And rather than just, like you said, sort of after the game, they get back to the hotel, they know they've got to go to sleep at some point, but they can't. But this, I can tell the athlete, tonight, when you get back, it'll be about 1:30. Don't just rush and brush your teeth and dive into bed. Take a pre-sleep 60 or 90 minutes. Just let everything come down, relax, download, let the whole day and all that experience disappear, and then just climb into bed for 3:30. Or, that's the next slot. And although it's not specific in that way, Ben, psychologically, you ask me what I'm doing, and I'm on a 5-cycle routine between 11 and 6:30. But I also use 12:32. If somebody asks me to be at a meeting or I've got to fly somewhere, I'll either wake at 5 or I'll wake at 3:30. And so what I'm doing is, by not having it random, I'm really trying to remain in a sort of rhythm and a pattern. And I don't get worried. And with athletes, things can just change during the day. It's all of us, isn't it? The sun comes out and we think, oh, let's go out tonight. You want to live your life to the full. You want to really push the boundaries all the time. So if I'm talking to you and I think tonight I plan to be in bed and asleep at 11 and get up at 6:30, you turn around to me and say, come on, Nick, let's go out for a run tonight. The weather's fantastic. Let's go for a bite to eat. or a plane gets delayed, whatever it might be, then immediately you say that to me, I think, right, I'm not going to get. It's 12:30 now. Tonight's going to be 12:30. What am I doing tomorrow? I'm in the office, so I can put a nap in 30 minutes or 90 minutes tomorrow afternoon. So immediately my sleep confidence is not about the hours I'm going to lose. I'm now really positive that I want to come and enjoy the evening with you. I'm not worried about getting back at maybe 11 o'clock because I'm just going to get in, relax, and be asleep for 12:30. I'll get 4 cycles till 6:30. I'll get up, but I've already planned in a little recovery slot tomorrow. And I just keep flowing with it like that. And so it doesn't become a worrying factor, because sleep deprivation is a word that, is bandied around. But what does it actually mean? Can you actually catch up? How many hours did you lose, and how many hours have you got to catch up? In every 24-hour period, this circadian process is just rolling through them. So you can't turn around and go, I'm going to get 10 hours tonight and I'll be okay. Because you might spend 10 hours sleeping in a light sleep stage and not get any benefit from it at all. So it's much better to look at it that way, Bill.
Fascinating. Okay, so talking about, I suppose, the pros and cons, I've heard a lot about polyphasic sleeping cycles. I know of many people that like to have specific slots in their work schedule that do that. They might go to bed early and get up at like 2 or 3 a.m, work for a couple of hours and then go back to bed. And I think it's a fascinating prospect. And quite often, especially when I was busy working on various different things, from being a practitioner and trying to build my business and stuff, I'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, work a couple of hours, maybe go to the gym, work through, and then have a little nap in the afternoon, like you said. But I've never found there was more. I've always thought there was more benefit by having or trying to get the solid 7 hours sleep that my body wants from 10:30 a.m. till 5. So if someone can get that, do you think it's that is the preferable option?
Yeah, like I say, you can't ignore the fact that as you move through your formative years into your early teens, into your late teens, all that's happening is your requirement to sleep for a certain amount of hours is diminishing. So it moves from the 14, 15 hours you need as an early teenager. This is always the debate about going to school for 9 o'clock, 8:45, is because you're dragging chronotypes in which don't want to be there, and also teenagers need to get 12 plus hours of sleep, and that's under real pressure. So your target is 5 cycles gives you 7.5 hours. That's your 8 hours. 6 cycles gives you 9 hours. So your target is to get those 5 cycles, and if you can get them in one block, fantastic. If I can roll into sleep at 11 o'clock, pre-sleep before that, wake up at 6:30, post-sleep between 6:30 and 8, and now I can go and attack the world. That's great. And there's a process called sleep restriction, Ben, which you may be aware of. And if you get out of sync and you start to find it difficult to sleep, what you do is you take somebody down and minimize the amount of sleep they're actually getting. So they sleep between 2 specific points. And then as it becomes, you grow it back out again. So all the time sleeping in a polyphasic way is not about just sleeping. You've got those 3 times during the day. Your objective is to get those 5 cycles in every night. But it doesn't concern you when you have to make those shifts, because you're working in harmony with this process. And if ideally you could set your agenda so that you could do that every day, you would. But I think then it is just, I've never met anybody who has a plan every day to achieve a block of 8 hours every day between 2 specific points. It's just unrealistic. So once you start to look at it, I wouldn't suggest, the sort of extreme polyphasic approach where like you were just describing, it's sort of you're all over the place. What we're trying to do is keep within the harmony and the rhythms of this natural process, and that's how we sort of keep that structure there. But if you didn't get 35 cycles, we wouldn't target getting 50 cycles the next week. It don't work like that. As long as we've got those cycles in place throughout that period of time, and we're not talking about one cycle at night, and 3 in the afternoon. It's just whatever we get from the night. If it's 3, if it's 4, fine. But then we balance it with 90 or 30 midday, and we keep that process going. Always trying to make sure that in any 7-day period, maybe at least 3 to 4 out of those periods, you're getting a full block. Okay. And it's the other times when you're traveling, when you're playing at different events and having to do certain different things. And it kind of stops an athlete as well, Ben, because we've seen it quite a lot, is that if they, the following day after a particular event, they might do some recovery work, and then, shortly after lunch, they'll go home to their homes. They'll go back to their homes, and they might crash out because of lost sleep and things like that. And they'll just sleep for hours until they wake. Whereas with the athlete, if they know that when they get back home, they're going to do a 90-minute alarmed period, so they set the alarm. If they fall asleep on the couch or in bed or whatever it is, they're doing a 90-minute cycle as part of the whole routine, not just letting it happen when it wants to happen because it's so powerful. So
I mean, if I let's say I go to bed at 10:30 at night, and that feels for me the right time, and my next sleep opportunity is 12, and I get in late from dinner one night at 11:15. If I get in the door and I'm like, oh, I'm knackered, I just want to go to bed. Do you think I should be waiting until midnight, or do you think I should go to bed because my body is just knackered and it wants to sleep?
Actually, it may sound a bit weird, but that's what you should do. It's okay. Because what will happen is if you could watch somebody in a sleep state, they're all wired up and they're going through these brainwave patterns and shifts and stages, is what you'll do is your head will hit the pillow. You'll sort of dive bomb into a deep sleep stage because you're absolutely, you're off your feet. Mm-hmm. You'll wander through a couple of 90-minute periods in a sort of deep sleep, REM, non-REM area because you're really tired. What will happen is then, as you start to sort of come out of that cycle and you're likely to start sticking in light sleep stages for a bit because you've had this kickstart of deep sleep, which is kind of unnatural because you were overtired. And then when you come out the back of that, you'll drop down into a normal process just when the sort of alarm clock's going to kick off. and most people who go to bed really tired cannot keep it going. They can't get through that block of sleep. They start wandering around in light sleep stages and they don't really get there. So it's much better for you to literally just make sure your bowel and bladders have an opportunity to empty, to download information, to get body temperature right, and to feel very comfortable and really chill out, and then into bed, curl up, fetal position, off you go, roll through those cycles, wake up in the morning, and be very confident you've got another opportunity to do 30 minutes tomorrow afternoon just to top it up if you want, And it's that's the approach we have to take with athletes because, when you get these high levels of adrenaline and anxiety and stress from being involved in elite sport, the night before, the period before an event, and immediately after, people like Steve Redgrave, for example, actually made a point of not sleeping the night before an event because there were so many factors against going into a sleep state and getting the real benefits from it, is by not doing it, you can concentrate on other more positive recovery activities rather than worrying about being in a sleep state and sticking to it. And so when you're always looking in that area, it's about being in more control of it, raising your confidence about it, and not being that concerned about what you've lost. Be concerned about what you're doing doing that process. And that's why it works much better with athletes than anything else. I mean, you get in, run upstairs, brush your teeth, jump into bed, fine. But the person who just hangs around a little bit will go into a much better rhythm, get much more quality from it, and wake up more refreshed.
Interesting. I'm going to have to play around with that. Fascinating. The only problem with that, though, I foresee, is a huge amount of people are not good at relaxing. If you asked, someone to say, I want you to turn off your phone and just chill for 45 minutes, there'll be an awful lot of people will not know what to do for those 45 minutes because usually it will be TV, it will be Netflix, it will be film.
Yeah.
So what do you do in that situation?
Take it all off them. But it's true that is the reason why we're talking about sleep and recovery. It's because so many things just keep developing around us, moving us into places where if we don't understand how to manage these things and what we should be doing, then they can really have an impact. And it's easy with elite athletes because you tell them to do something and you can show them the reasons why, and they will do it. It's not so easy for everybody else, of course it isn't. But I think it's just the sort of sleep revolution, the place we are at this moment in time. People can understand that they're pushing it too hard, and I think the more they listen to yourself, Ben, and everybody else who's talking about good well-being tactics. This area is one. You've got to learn to relax. You've got to learn to chill out. You've got to learn that after all you've been doing, your brain needs to do stuff, and it does stuff when you're chilling out. Everybody who goes to sleep and they're just thinking about stuff and stressing about stuff, their body overheats. Because it's creating more temperature, and they find it difficult to stay asleep, and it's aggravating, and all this sort of stuff. And it's just, you have to say to them, look, don't think of a pre-sleep routine as you've got to shut down, but you've got to have something in your head that's moving you from light to dark. You've got to get this process going, and you will benefit massively from the level of recovery that you get by doing that. And if you don't, it's just going to get worse.
So, are there any ways that you usually recommend for someone during this kind of, we'll call it the 45 minutes before sleep? I quite often recommend reading a book, sometimes meditating, stretching, talking to a loved one. Is there anything else that you tend to recommend on top of the general?
No, it's all the same stuff that people can access. You just find things that you need to be able to replicate these things wherever you are, because it's not just about being at home. So an athlete needs to be able to adopt a pre-sleep routine wherever they are, even if they're in Rio this summer in the accommodation village there. So it normally is something like that. Meditation has certainly become a real key factor, as you know about. So there's certain yoga routines. Sun salutation is one that I know one of my clients uses. It's just certain little calming, stretching exercises just to take you into a nice place. It, as well as just decluttering. It's a weird balance. The sort of people say, "Oh, you're a bit anal because you want everything in its place and labelled and all that sort of stuff." It's not. If you just by doing that process of just in your own home and environment, just relating to that's over there, this is here, I'll just put that back in there, just finish the dishwasher, empty the dishwasher, or clean that surface, or whatever it might be, or just, have a little read of a book or something like that, is all of that process can increase the levels of quality of sleep you get by enormous amounts, because you're just giving the brain that opportunity to put things in the right place. There's other, there's mind hacking stuff you can get now and download it onto your device. And it can be sounds, it can be all sorts of things that really have an effect. There's devices that you can put under your pillow that will actually trigger the right brainwave patterns for you to sleep better. But I think, at the end of the day, the first thing is that that if you're targeting 11 o'clock tonight, to be in a sleep state, to wander through those cycles in a nice, relaxed, unaggravated way, then around 9:30 you've got to start thinking about shutting tech down, doing things you don't normally do during the day, like you say, read a book, to relax and allow that process to come along. Not slamming a 3-hour film on. It's just...
Go on. I want to make sure we've got time to talk about kind of gadgets because I know we've talked about the general. There's obviously strategies, little tools, little hacks that you have. When we were talking before we went on air, you started to hold up a few sort of things that you like to use
Yeah.
and stuff. Give us an idea of a couple of things that people can maybe go away and do a little bit of research themselves because there will be the geeks among us that will be like, well, I want to know some hacks.
All right. Okay. There's a little thing here. Tiny little yellow thing. You see it?
Yeah.
You come across them before?
It looks like something I'd put in my nose.
Yeah.
Oh, it is? Oh.
So you ram it up there. Probably everybody's aware of breathe right strips.
Yep.
Little plaster across there. Open up the passages. You can increase oxygen levels up to 40% by opening up the airways in there because we are pretty much everybody is mouth breathers. So we breathe in and out through the mouth, and particularly in sport, it's common trying to drag air in. The one thing you need in a sleep state, remember when you're a little kid, you're on bed, you're breathing in and out through your nose, quietly and gently. So if you're mouth breathing, you get dry mouth, you can snore, you have to wait, you get up to hydrate, it disturbs sleep, partners and everybody. So it's not a good thing. So teaching yourself to nose breathe again is one of those things a lot of athletes, even if they're training, they'll have them in. Pre-sleep, 9:30, pop it up there, keep the lips closed, even if I'm still watching the end of a film, and just breathe in and out. It's amazing if you just ask all your listeners right now, just close your mouth and see what you have to do to get air into your nose. Most people will have to do it. Mm-hmm. It's not a natural thing to do. That happens to be, a lot of the professional cyclists use them. They happen to be called Rhinomed turbines, and they come in all sorts of different sizes. But yes, it's a product on one level, but it actually helps people nose breathe, which will help their sleep enormously if they do that when they're sleeping rather than mouth breathe. This is a bit more geeky, but it's natural. We keep mentioning light.
Before you go into that, I just want to support the kind of argument for nose breathing because I had asthma as a kid, and I did the I did the Buteyko technique to solve my asthma, and it got rid of all my asthma. And I had it bad. I was on steroids, on all sorts, and now I'm a great nose breather. Big fan. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. It's big stuff, and there's The Oxygen Advantage, which is a book which is all about Buteyko. Fantastic, because it's one of those things that we've shifted, as you know, Ben, and I think everybody, if they either take on a little technique or they get some help from a little product, it will change a lot of things in their lives as well as quality of sleep. And when you're talking about the sort of cycles and circadian rhythms, and we're all aware of, the blue light and devices and how much we get, and it triggers everything. One thing that I actually use, because it's techie, but it's natural. So what you can see is I've just got, if you can see that, you see the light coming out of there.
Yeah.
So this is called a human.
Listening on audio, Nick's holding up what looks like a
looks
pair of headphones.
Nano-pad, whatever, little music device, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like the headphones I've got in now, and literally, they just get popped into your ear. You hit it; it just does it for 15 minutes. It's like the SAD lamps. It's like the daylight lamps that you can use when it's winter.
Yep.
And what happens is, and for travelling, for jet lag and everything, so all this is doing is putting daylight run through my eye into the pineal gland. It's going through the ear canal into the pineal gland.
Wow.
And I'm just sitting there listening to some tunes. But what I'm doing is I'm getting this natural boost from making sure that serotonin level is at its best when I need it. So it's like a recovery tool. And, I'm talking to you now at, 1:45. We're right in the graveyard slot. We're right between 1 and 3. I'm a morning person, so I'm starting to drop. I could really be quite happy just sitting doing nothing. If I need to speak to you, then I'll just put this on for 15 minutes before I talk to you, and that'll just bring me up. It's like a nap. It's like that sort of process. It's called the human charger, and
Cool.
where you Eh?
That's cool.
It is cool because it's, you know, it's when you're trying to, like you say, trying to get people to chill out and stuff like that. Sometimes you just have to. An elite athlete will know that when they're doing a lot of travelling, what this is doing is that using light to shift them back into time zones for jet lag and fatigue. It's great if you just feel a little bit, during the course of the afternoon. Just like my colleagues in the office here, we've got daylight SAD lamps on our desk, so we'll just switch that on just to get a little boost, And but this is great because it's so portable and it does exactly the same job, and it's a brilliant little piece of kit. So that's when I sort of, oh, I'm not going to make 11 o'clock tonight. Oh, it's going to be 12:30. It might even be 2 o'clock. I get in, I don't just rush to bed because I'm going to have a recovery break tomorrow. So I might put a nap in between 1 and 3. I'll use this for 15 minutes before I speak to anybody in the afternoon. If I can't do it, I might use it between 5 and 7 just to give me a lift so I'm not falling asleep at 9 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of, it starts to become a little trend, particularly when you start to move into the winter.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of dark around. This can be a key piece of kit.
How much is one of those tools?
About the rate is at the moment, but I think it's about $130 or something like that.
Okay, that's not too bad. That's all right.
No, it's not. It's not ridiculous. I mean, when you just charge it up like you would your phone. It's so portable and versatile, and so you can't. Some of these SAD lamps you can't take them over. They're a small device and everything else. But even when I've done workshops midday for teams, I've been up since coming out of a sleep state from 6, getting up at 6:30. I've been really active in the morning. So by the time it gets to lunchtime, and we all know that everybody in that room in front of me is going to be going, they're going to be losing consciousness because it's that graveyard slot. I'll actually have that on. That's in my pocket. These are in my ears, and I won't even notice.
Yeah.
Because it's so familiar to all of us, isn't it? Like I'm speaking to you now with these in my ears. It's just such a familiar. So am I taking a nap? Am I in recovery, or am I just listening to some tunes? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, awesome.
So a lot of the things, if they're not intrusive, or they don't make it obvious to everybody else what you're doing, then they become a real benefit. And that's a couple of things. I've got a really wacky one, but as long as you've got time.
Yes.
But that's it. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, let's go.
Right. Well, I'll go away and come back. I'm not going anywhere. I just mean I'll just take it out, okay?
So for anyone that's listening on audio and wonders what's going on, we're filming it on video as well. So Nick's sort of obviously trying to bring up various things and holding them in front of me. So we're trying to do a good job of like explaining what's happening and that kind of stuff. And for people that aren't on video, he's now just put on a nice little pink jacket. So right. I'm not convinced what's going on, but it's very pink. He looks like a blancmange.
Yeah. Right, I've actually got. It's called. It's a Volback.
Right.
It's this particular pink. It's a very bright pink, as you say, sweetie pink. And the reason for that, it's Baker Miller 618. Now that is a particular colour that, like meditate, it actually can reduce heart rate. It's been researched and everything else. When you're surrounded by this colour, it can bring you down. Without doing all that sort of techie stuff about it. In extreme sports, with some of my clients, they might get stuck somewhere where they need to get into a recovery position really, really quickly because of rescue services and things like that, and they can't carry stuff with them. So all that happens with this is totally designed. It's completely waterproof, so it's all the neoprene stuff. The two pockets at the front, which you can just about see, puts you into that recovery position straight away. They're not pockets for stuff. You can put your recovery mind hacking thing, popping it in there with my earphones like that. straight into there.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I want to get into that particular position, I'll have to just, let me just do this another way around. Is that literally, you just pop up and disappear into your recovery suit. Off you go.
So, mate, if you're listening to this on audio, you're going to have to go and check the video out on Facebook or YouTube at a later date. Nip over there now. He basically zipped up into what looked like a morph suit. It looked hilarious.
Spider-Man.
It looked a little. No, I'm going to be honest. It looked a little bit S&M.
But it's sort of, there's for certain people in certain sports in certain areas, when you need to sort of, if you wanted to nap, it could be all sorts of things. But it's this process of like, bang, bang, go, 30 minutes, get going again. And so there's always going to be little things coming along that are transportable, that can be replicated, and to help that particular process. I've got a lot of athletes who love these things because they're not wandering around the streets in them. But in certain opportunities when they're training camps and everything else, it's really great. You could just bang that up and they can disappear into a nap in a crowded room, because it just creates that thing. You could do it with a hoodie, just a normal hoodie maybe. But it's, there's a lot of science coming along. Some of it's a bit crap, but some of it's useful, Ben.
Fascinating. Wow. I'm going to have to check out that human charger thing. That sounded fascinating. What was the thing that you said you can put under your pillow and it looks at the brain waves when you're sleeping? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's called a Z's. That's ZEEZ.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a product that you put under your pillow, and what it's basically doing is emitting the same the same wave patterns that your brain wants to do to sort of enter certain stages of sleep. So the slow wave, brainwave patterns. So what it's doing is sort of reminding your brain of these patterns and encouraging it to go into them. Now, I'm still investigating, its true value, but it has got quite a lot of clinical science behind it. And it does actually work. How many people will want to putting, something under their pillow that's sort of affecting what their brain wants to do? But I think it's one of the start of this process, Ben, where if you look into the future, what would be our ultimate goal? And that would be to not waste so much time sleeping. If we could do it quicker, more effectively, we're going to do it, aren't we? Mm. So I think this is the start of actually, physical recovery. I'm sure, we'll go quicker with it. I'm sure we will. But with the brain, if we can start influencing where it is and how it can go into certain like sleep stages, then wow, we could probably get sleep right down to a much shorter period, which is probably where we want to go. So I think in every case with these sort of products, there's people really trying to take advantage of this subject sleep, and they're coming out with devices and tech all the time. And you just need to keep your levels of awareness up. You don't need to just keep bringing things into your life, because they can have some really sort of counterproductive side effects if you're not. And if you expect them to help you sleep better, if you've got a poor sleep hygiene tactics in the first place, they're not going to do it. They want to be, certain articles that have come out recently, is if you get the basics right, get your knowledge up about circadian rhythms, get your knowledge up about your own chronotypes so you can minimize the outside influences, get your pre and post sleep routines into place. Be very much aware that you've got to get sleep prepared, and be very aware that you've got to get to a nice wake state before you start interacting and doing things. Certainly delayed start, tech start. You can use the mobile and the device to switch the alarm off. But all these notifications, wait until you've hydrated, wait until you've got outside of it. Give it 60 minutes or so before you start reacting to these, because, you don't text when you're drunk, Ben. And in the morning, when you first come out of the sleep state, you want to give your opportunity, because all of that will influence everything you do during the day. So just think about that. Think about a much better balance between activity and recovery. That's really important. Every 90 minutes, think about a little break. Use the other natural sleep periods. Check your products out that you're sleeping with, because a lot of people's first investment is to go out and buy maybe a new mattress, a new pillow to help them sleep. Well, I could give you all a little quick check you could do tonight, which will tell you that, if you've got the correct mattress underneath you, you wouldn't be sleeping with a pillow. And your environment, make sure that's set up. And these are all little things. And then you can actually bring either natural supplements into the process of helping. You can bring in little human chargers maybe. You can encourage yourself to nose breathe. Those little things can come in and add in, but in isolation, they won't have much effect on you.
Wowzers. Nick, what I'll do is I can end up speaking to you all day. I think you're quite fascinating. But we should probably knock it on the head there. I think you've given a lot of real practical insight there today. I know that this is pretty much your full-time work. If people wanted to kind of get geeky with their sleep, I know you do sleep consultations. You've got various things kicking about on your website. So let's remind everyone again where they can find you and get some more information about the work you do.
Yeah. If you just go to sportsleepcoach.com, so that's sleep coach with sport in front of it, not sports, sportsleepcoach.com. We have got a full range of products which I designed specifically for athletes to maximise their recovery, everything from mattresses, pillows and duvets. We've got a good thing that all your subscribers can do, Ben, straight away, is on the homepage you'll see a free sleep profiler. And that's a very quick thing somebody can do. It's completely free, 24 questions, yes or no's, and that will give you an evaluation of where you are in these key sleep recovery factors, 25%, 30%, whatever. So it'll start you thinking about the process in a simple way, and it's very quick. You can get a personal consultation, which is pretty much, it's a one hit. Don't need to know much more about it from that point on, which is the sleep profile consult. You'll complete a questionnaire. I will assess it, provide you with a report which covers everything, so you can now start to develop those little steps and changes in everything that you do, which will aggregate up. And we do team workshops and all sorts of things like that as well. There's always loads of information on the site because we're blogging all the time. And we've got an active Twitter feed at Sports Sleep Coach as well. And if you wanted, Ben, you could have a little code for your friends out there, so they could access all those services at a special rate, if that was something you'd like to offer them.
Great, the microphone is yours. Do what you want.
Well, we can activate a little code, maybe Ben C10.
There we go.
And that means if they do go in, whether it's coaching service, whether it's a product they'd like to buy, then if they put that code into the cart, then they will get your discount. And at the same time, I know it sounds, but we get inquiries every day, people just asking daft questions, serious questions, or just saying, I don't know what to do, can you advise us? And we provide a lot of advice without charge. We're communicating all the time, producing. So anybody, if they want to get in touch, most of it all drops onto my desk and my colleague Jess's desk. And, we're happy to advise anybody if they're interested in this process. And, like you, if you get it right, it can really be a life changer for a lot of people.
Nick, I don't disagree. Sleep is the one thing that I have a massive passion for, with communicating to personal trainers and everyone that I teach. To talk about sleep a lot. I think it's the one thing you've got to really get right. So those resources, I think, for everyone are amazing. So you've heard it, everyone. Ben C10 will give you a code to get, I'm assuming, 10% off, which is the 10.
I was going to make it 100. We'll make it 10, Ben.
at sportsleepcoach.com. I'm going to do the sleep profile thing. It's something that I'm always trying to hack. Like you mentioned the Z's thing. If I can get my sleep to even be half an hour shorter, that means I've got 3 hours more productivity every week. Like, I'm going to take that every day of the week. So little things like that I would love to try and hack myself. But Nick, thank you very much for giving your time over these last 2 episodes of the podcast. Very generous.
Not a problem. Very kind of you.
And for everyone, look, just explore this. You have heard me talk loads about sleep. Go check out Nick's work, Sports Sleep Coach, on Twitter, sportsleepcoach.com. You've got a code, check it out, do the sleep profile, it's free, it's a no-brainer. There's obviously loads of blogs there, go check it out. And yeah, learn more about sleep, simple as that.
Great.
All right, Nick, well, thank you very much for your time. Everyone on the podcast, communicate with me and Nick. Maybe tag us in on Twitter. Maybe do the sleep profile and tell me and Nick what you got, what the score was, what you're going to do about it, what you're going to change. I like people to listen to this podcast and take action. There's no point all 20,000 of you sitting there just absorbing this information and letting it sort of half go into your head, letting it half permeate. Like, take action. Tag us on Twitter and say, I'm going to do this. I learnt this. This was fascinating. I've bought this. I've discovered this. Just let us know. It's interesting. It's nice to have that feedback. And if you've not yet left me a review on iTunes, please do me a massive favour and leave a review on iTunes. It helps more people discover the show and allows the show to build and this information to disseminate around the world. So, you've heard it all. Sleep, get it sorted, and I will see you on next week's podcast. Ciao. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number, no idea, doing this advanced, who cares anyway, I know you don't care. So today, one of my favourite topics, we've talked about sleep before,